Hi and welcome. My name is Timo Schwenzfeier, show director of NeoNyt, and I'm happy to be here today with Johannes Fürst from Drip by Drip, Anurag Gupta from Usha Yarns, and Gunnar Heller from ForSource. The fashion and textile industry is one of the most globalized and at the same time resource-intensive and polluting industries. Its sourcing market is highly fragmented, and sustainable sourcing is maybe and hopefully one of the solutions. So that's our topic for today. In order to make supply chains more transparent and to hold companies liable for their suppliers' human rights or environmental frauds, the European Union and Germany are trying to put some supply chain laws into action. At the same time, the COVID-19 crisis has shown how vulnerable global supply chains are. Thus, sustainable sourcing has become more crucial than ever before for the fashion industry and for the textile industry to recover after the crisis and to create a more sustainable future for the textile and the fashion industry in general and for the whole planet. So to discuss how sustainable sourcing can work, we have invited three guests. I'm very proud and happy to have you here aboard with me. Hello, good to see you here. And to start off, why don't you introduce yourself really quick and say a few words to our audience about you, about your companies, the areas you're working on. And Johannes, why don't you start? Then Anurag, and last but not least, Gunnar. So Hannes, please.
Hi, good morning. My name is Johannes Fürst. I am a co-founder of the creative studio and textile agency Montebello, and I work between A Coruña, Spain and Portugal. The focus of my work lies on the research and development of sustainable textile production processes. For this, I work closely with brands, mills and manufacturers in all stages of the supply chain. I am also one of the founding members of Drip by Drip. At this non-profit organization, we tackle the water issues in the textile industry. So we work mainly in 4 areas. One is education, where we inform about the correlation between water and fashion, offering a platform of exchange for producers, brands and consumers. The second one is wastewater management, where we support and initiate knowledge transfer between textile mills to spread the usage of water-friendly technologies. The third area are community projects. We help and fund solutions to access clean water in areas that are affected by the textile industry. And the fourth one is my responsibility at the NGO, that is the Blue Lab. And it's an initiative to create water-friendly solutions from fiber to final product at all stages of the value chain.
Thank you, Hannes. Anurag, please.
Hi, good afternoon. I am Anurag Gupta from Usha Yarns Limited, India. We are an almost 25-year-old company, and we have about 3 spinning factories here in this region, Chandigarh. And we also have one more factory under the name of SR Spinning. And all these 4 companies are dedicated to manufacturing recycled yarn from pre-consumer textile waste and post-consumer polyester. So that's what we do.
Great. Then congratulations to the anniversary. Hope you can celebrate it a little bit.
Thank you.
Last but not least, Gunnar, please.
Thank you, Timo. And yeah, hi everyone. Great to get to know you all and your companies. And thanks for having me. My name is Gunnar Heller, and I'm head of CSR and member compliance at ForSource. A little bit about ForSource maybe. ForSource was founded in 2016 in Berlin with the mission to simplify the life of professional product and sourcing teams on one side, and to make also the marketing and sales processes of their suppliers more efficient. And by doing so, we have created the world's largest and fastest growing industry network with more than currently 20,000 members spanning over 120 countries. And we cover the demand side, so brands, buyers, and the supply side, garment manufacturers and fabric suppliers. And ForSource can be described as, the next generation supply side CRM, where we simplify the scouting and onboarding of new suppliers. We organize the collaboration and the networking and the quoting processes between the parties. And through our network and our tools, we enable faster, better, and more sustainable sourcing without the need to travel. And drawing the line to this main focus of this talk, sustainable sourcing, we also play a role in digitalizing the product creation and development. by making physical fabric samples redundant, and through our technology only working with digital samples in the future. We've also developed tools to enable our buyers to search and find more sustainable suppliers. And we also have tools that help our buyers to facilitate their compliance management of their suppliers. But this, I think we will go into a little bit more detail later. So just a little teaser in the beginning. Thanks.
Yeah, great. Thank you so much. I must say I'm really excited about this talk because sustainable sourcing has become one of my favorite topics within the last season. So I'm really glad to have you here. I would have loved to welcome you personally at NeoNyt, but now we go digital because this is the new action time. And action is a good word here because just last year we've entered the decade of action from the United Nations. From 2020 on, the global community has 10 years left to achieve the 17 Sustainable Development Goals. I have them here. I carry them with me all the time, to which the United Nations member states committed themselves in the Agenda 2030. One of these goals is to reduce water scarcity. At the same time, the textile and fashion industry is one of the biggest consumers of water. So please, Johannes, tell us about the idea behind Drip by Drips and what your approach has to do with sourcing. So where is the connection here?
Yeah. So I also always carry a reminder on these SDGs with me. I purchased this on one of our industry events, and it's really, really great to always think about these goals at work. So the idea behind Drip by Drip is the massive water consumption in the industry. There's a big overconsumption, there's a big problem with the pollution of water through the fashion industry. And when we talk about sustainable materials and sourcing, water plays such an important role. So it is a major resource for fiber production, dyeing, finishing. But it's not only about the consumption of this specific water, but it's also about the contamination of groundwaters, river, and eventually the oceans. So the water issues are an environmental topic, but also a social one, as our industry contributes to water scarcity. So Drip by Drip was founded to tackle these issues. There was no NGO focusing in this area. And we founded the organization because we believe that these problems that I was talking about can be solved. The fashion industry has already some of the solutions and technologies at hand, and they just have to be adapted with more focus. So some of the solutions are, there's already agriculture that require less artificial irrigation, where we need less chemicals. There are alternative fibers that are less thirsty. There are dyeing methods that require less water. And it's possible to recycle the water in mills to avoid these toxic wastewaters. So our aim to support professionals in sourcing is when it comes to these water issues. So we do this by informing about the problems and also about the solutions, and also by teaming up with partners in the industry to offer materials with a transparent water footprint. And that's why we founded the Blue Lab initiative. It's also my responsibility within Drip by Drip. And here our goal is to establish a range of materials with a network of partners, and to have partners on all levels of the supply chain where water is used and polluted, and to offer also to producer and to brands to analyze the water footprint. So at many companies that is still not done. There's still no focus on water. And until now, we already developed a good range of fabrics, of materials that are already available on the market, and where we calculated the exact amount of water that is used to produce those fabrics. And this is already these are already out there. They can be purchased. And for the next year, we are planning to work with even more partners and to offer more of these material solutions.
Great initiative. Thank you very much. So, Anurag, we have heard about one of the environmental aspects in the production process of fashion, but what about the material? Usha Yarns is producing a quality recycled pre-dyed yarn. Can you tell us a little bit more about the product and especially about the philosophy and maybe about some of your customers?
So what we do is we collect cotton t-shirt cuttings from garment factories within India, and we also collect some from neighboring countries. Now, the garment industry in this region is quite big and it generates a lot of this waste. This waste is sorted out according to color, quality, and then processed mechanically to get recycled fiber. And it is all cotton fiber in a color. And this is then blended with colored PET bottle fiber. So here we have a pre-consumer cotton fiber and a post-consumer PET fiber, which is blended to make the yarn, and we get a colored yarn. There is no need for dyeing. Now, this technology of doing a mechanical recycling and PET fiber has been around for quite some time. The only difference is that earlier when we started doing it, the yarn quality that we used to get was only good for making coarser fabrics like maybe rugs, curtains, or socks then later on. But over the years, we've been able to optimize the processes and use newer technologies in spinning to be able to produce a quality of the yarn which is suitable for making fresh garments like t-shirts, track suits, or even woven fabrics for garments. This yarn is already colored, so it needs no dyeing. It also turns out to be cheaper because the customer saves on the dyeing cost. And you save the environment and also you end up consuming the waste. So the advantages are that the waste is consumed, it doesn't go to a landfill. There is no pollution because you don't have to dye. You also save on requirements of fresh water consuming as well as pesticide consuming process. And also you end up saving money because you don't have to dye. So our focus all these years has been to be able to reach a process where the quality is acceptable. So when we started, the quality levels were not level where a brand or a big garment retailer would accept this, and our journey has been trying to improve on the processes to make them more mature so that it is also acceptable to the final consumer and the brand. That is why our logo goes recycle to perfection and align with nature. Nature almost has everything which can be recycled, and we have been striving to get this circular economy, trying to close the loop. And I think there is still some more work to be done because we are still grappling with post-consumer waste to be made in a cost and environment friendly way for recycling. There are some technologies available where you can recycle blended post-consumer products, but still either there are challenges in terms of pricing or quality. Today, the yarn that we produce is guaranteed for consistency, color, blend. So this was quite a challenge for us to be able to control the blends, fiber qualities, consistency of color, lot sizes, not many variations within the lot. So this is what we've achieved in the last 10 years. We have been able to develop our processes to a level where we can produce large lots. Let's say if you want to order 50 tons of black for a whole production run, and you want the black to be repeated every time in the same black, and also that the fiber blend inside the yarn is not something unexpected, that something else will come in because it's a recycled. And also we've been able to put in place systems of testing for restricted chemicals inside the recycled materials that we buy. And we can provide you traceability for what waste has gone into it, and where the yarn has gone and what fabric has come out and the gown. So those are the things which we are working on, and these have been the basic challenges which we faced when we introduced our products to brands, they always, were very skeptical that they put their hands into such recycled products. They were not sure what would come out and what trouble they would run into. Several international brands have now, started accepting it. And there are others also who are looking at it very seriously, and we are hopeful that many more will join the bandwagon of using this recycled product, which they are very happy to claim they're made from 100% recycled yarn. And I see that the demand is growing at a great speed.
Great. Yeah. Good luck with that. Yeah. We just talked about the production processes and the materials, how to make them more sustainable, but it's always also the question how buyers actually can find reliable partners working sustainably and or offering sustainable products. Of course, normally trade shows would be a good fit for that, but right now it's a little bit difficult. So this is where ForSource comes into play, connecting buyers and suppliers worldwide. Gunnar, is that right? Can you agree on that?
Yes, I can wholeheartedly. You've already mentioned it, Timo. I think we can all agree that, especially nowadays, it is extremely difficult to ensure transparency, trust, and traceability in these textile supply chains, as there are so many players involved. Supply chains are highly fragmented. Relationships change fast, and they span the entire world. So really control that buyers have and oversight over downstream players is very low. And that's why sustainability or CSR efforts, it's hard to judge them. And that leaves, unfortunately, room in these supply chains for human rights violations or unsustainable practices happening. And this is where ForSource aims to improve the situation. We've basically created 3 pillars to help the situation there and help buyers find more sustainable suppliers. The first one is that by the way we're already working, by digitalizing the whole sourcing process, we bring much more trust and transparency into these supply chains because we verify all our members, we make sure there's trustworthy data within our network. And we bring more visibility to the supply chain because sources like traders and retailers who have usually low transparency are basically taken out of the supply chain. Secondly, we also have the worldwide most extensive and complete database of compliance standards and certificates because we enable on one side our suppliers to showcase their CSR and sustainability efforts. And in turn, of course, then our buyers to specifically search for these qualities in new suppliers, making sustainable sourcing much easier. And to do this, we've not reinvented 2 or 3 more standards, but we rather chose to work with what is already out there. That is why currently suppliers can upload more than 25 of the most relevant certificates and standards on ForSource. This includes, for example, Oekotex, Textile Exchange, RAP, GOTS, to just name a few. And we don't only display them and make them searchable, but we also verify them. So we have a team working on verifying these standards. And also we have an API integration with the databases of our long-term partners. So this is Oekotex and RAP currently, which enables us to provide really real-time data on these certificates and their validity also. And in the future, more API integrations with more organizations are also coming. So this is our second solution. And then the third one is addressing this issue of really shipping massive amounts of textile and garment samples all around the world, sending sourcing teams everywhere. We are working on digitalizing showrooms. Also, we're making trade shows available digitally. We're digital partners. Later, I think we can talk about more about this. And we make fabric samples. We're 100% digital, working together with some of the leading players in the respective fields so that these fabric samples can be directly used in all leading product development systems. And of course, this would minimizes the amount of physical samples, trade shows, travel, shipments, lowers carbon emissions and waste. Yeah, and just to sum up, maybe they're creating the trust, traceability, and transparency in the supply chains, then enabling the showcasing, advertisement, and searching of certificates and verified certificates, and then thirdly, digitalizing fabric samples and making physical samples and lots of traveling for trade shows redundant. This is how we as Force help.
So, I mean, on one hand, I do not want to stress the COVID-19 topic too much, but on the other hand, we all had to learn to cope with the current situation. So I think, however, the crisis has shown how vulnerable global supply chains are. For example, producers cancel orders for raw materials and finished goods, textile factories closed, retailers could not sell the new collections. And of course, customers, the end consumers are becoming more conscious on what and how much to buy. Gunnar, from your perspective, can you already see and say how much or how this did affect the international sourcing area?
Yeah, I mean, firstly, of course, we need to take into account that the pandemic did not only affect those who actually got sick or even died, but it also created such a huge human disaster in many of the sourcing countries, is what we saw, where we saw countless workers losing their income and livelihoods, really. And from the sourcing side, what we saw from our data is that when the COVID crisis hit China and supply chains really broke down, we saw not only very fast member growth at ForSource, but also that ForSource buyers searched for and found new factories pretty quickly, with especially countries like Bangladesh, Vietnam, Turkey, and Portugal benefiting in this early time. But then, yeah, with no end in sight and the lockdowns coming in Europe, we saw that brands started to massively experience and also expect lower sales, with canceling orders and bringing, thousands of factories in really existential trouble, because they had ordered materials or short-term invested in capacities, needed to pay their workers, etc. And then we saw in summer that when brands started to seek for the autumn-winter 2020 highlights or spring-summer 2021 production, that all trade shows were cancelled. And so we saw that some were done online. We, for example, did one together with the IAF and Sourcing Journal to help the industry come together there. And later we also partnered with the world's leading industry shows like TexWorld and the Paris Sourcing Paris, as well as ISPO Munich, to create this time fully digital show experience for the exhibitors and visitors. So this is one example of how the COVID crisis really changed the whole industry here. Timo, you've already mentioned it. And the results are also seen with the upcoming fully digital shows now in February 21, and here with the NeoNyt as a good example already. And currently we see in our data that factory scouting is back. However, sourcing volumes are still smaller than a year ago. And we also see that China has regained old strength because they managed to reduce infections to very low numbers. And over the year, we also saw a rise in searches for certifications and standards. So that is an indication that the COVID crisis can be also a change for more sustainable production and sourcing. And we hope that this trend will continue. These are the main trends that we saw this last year.
Yeah, we are with you on this hope. Absolutely. But I think we are on a very good way here. We can see that if you want to try to mention one, let's say, positive aspect on the pandemic situation, is that it's really a driver for more sustainability, 100%. Anurag, as a supplier of recycled yarns, do you see already changes in sourcing procedures in general? So what about, for example, challenges of sourcing executives, and how did the requirements of your customers change in the course of your company's history, maybe also driven by the last year's situation? Can you give us some insights here?
Well, over the last decade, the talk for sustainability, environment friendliness has gained huge momentum. Today, we see governments, companies, and customers all on the same page. It's taken quite an effort to get everybody on the same page. And a lot of organizations and NGOs have played a big role. So, with government regulation in place and the customer awareness also in place, no retailer today can avoid focus on sustainability. So it is a compulsion already there and nobody can avoid that. And this is clearly reflected in the sourcing guidelines. Today, companies are dedicating much larger resources. They may go and invest in a startup. They may put up more facilities to ensure that sustainability, recycling, all these things are being, adding, as you say, the 2030 challenge. So the shift is absolutely evident, and the sourcing executives, they are devoting more and more time because now they have targets. Earlier, it was only talk. So now all of them have targets to achieve their sustainability. Targets are clear, and they are working very hard to find the right products, to find the right suppliers who can fit into parameters of quality, reliability, consistency, and traceability. So these are the four areas. The target is there that look, you have to have 20% recycled content, you have to meet certification. But it is for the sourcing executive at the bottom of the ladder, who is running around to make sure that while they achieve these targets, nothing goes wrong. So at our end, we see that most of the garment companies who buy yarn from the manufacturers, they are really, it's quite a pressure on them to be able to fit into these challenges. We have to meet price, they have to meet traceability. Traceability is the new thing which is, really being talked about. It is still not fully in place, but I think it should be there in a year or two. But the rest of the things like getting quality in recycled content, getting reliability in recycled content, getting consistency in recycled content, that is taking up quite a lot of time and energy from the sourcing executive. There are some companies which have, been very bold and gone ahead and started doing it already. And then there are others which are still evaluating, they keep coming back to us with queries. They keep coming back to be more and more sure that they don't go wrong once they put it on their shelves. And we are also trying to scale up our capabilities to fit into their requirements so that they are inspired and feel confident. And probably it is customer driven, I would say, what we are doing today by a large extent. So we do things on our own initiative, but today it's been quite a journey for us to be able to reach a level where while we are using recycled content and that to mechanical recycling, we have some courage to talk about consistency and all the parameters. And this shift has really accelerated over the last decade. If I go back 10 years, the only thing one would talk about is price and quality. New product, what is the best price you can get and what quality you can assure. And then there was talk of sustainability or certification. But now it is very clear. They have clear targets. This much percentage of recycled content and this quality. And I think if I talk of the textile industry here in India, neighboring countries like Bangladesh, everybody is focused on that, forced to do that. Some have already accepted it and doing it much faster. Others are being forced to do it. So from my side, I would say that yes, there is a lot of alarm, but that alarm is pretty reasonably being addressed, and I think we are moving forward with a good speed. If I talk of Usha Yarns, we really feel proud that to be a part and to be introducing recycled yarns into the garment industry and being able to have them accepted by, I wouldn't name them on this forum, but there are a lot of brands who have already, big brands, who have already accepted our products and have been bold enough to put them on store shelves, and they're coming back for fresh orders and repeat orders.
That's great.
I mean, it's a major change.
It has to be the market. Yeah, it has to be the market. As soon as it's part of the market and everyone can see that it's workable and it has the right quality and everything, then it's part of the journey. Absolutely. And what you just said, that you can see that there are still some companies evaluating sustainability. I think they have maybe 1 or 2 more years, and then they can, if they don't change, then they can evaluate how to get out of bankruptcy. Kind of. So
yeah, I mean, there are some people who just, it's like that tipping point. Some people who will take the first step and then others who will follow. So
yeah, of course, as usual, as usual. Hannes, one of your approaches is to create long-term partnerships with industry in order to share knowledge and to commonly create solutions. What do you think are the biggest challenges to overcome in order to make fashion companies source more sustainably? I mean, we have talked about the goals for the buyers, but what other challenges do you see, or also maybe what other kind of solutions?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, since we started, we built up partnerships with 3 bigger companies. One a fiber producer, a spinning mill, and a knitter and a dyeing house. And so we invited designers and buyers also to visit these partners with us. And on some of these visits, we really realized that even experienced buyers and experienced designers didn't see some of these processes before. Like, it's not that common to really visit a spinning mill or a fiber producer even. And maybe a knitter or a dye house is more common, but still there are some of these processes that happen within these factories that the real decision makers don't really know. So I think one of the challenges is really to make people understand how the processes work and what it means when we talk about sustainable solutions or sustainable materials. So they can really make the right decisions, because it's difficult to just judge by a certificate. I mean, certificates are great and they are important, but I think it's really, really important that the people that decide for the materials and that decide for the production processes have an idea what these certificates really mean and how they adapt within the whole supply chain, not only at the garment maker, which is the factory that normally brands are talking about. So also with Drip by Drip, we gave some workshops last year to different universities, which was really interesting. And we got really, really interesting questions from the students. And we could see that there's a huge interest in these topics, because it's something that is not so common to study and to learn about when you study fashion or even development or textile engineering. So I found that really, really interesting. And we can also see with the little insight that we have in universities right now with the NGO, we can see that there are things changing and they are adapting more, and there's more courses and classes about these topics as well. Because like every one of the students right now is asking for sustainability and what it means. So for me, I think one of the biggest challenges is to spread the knowledge about this big field of sustainability when it comes to sourcing, like to really understand what materials are, what is viscose, what is polyester, and what is recycled polyester. These kind of questions have to be easily answered by any fashion professional, I think, and then you can make these kind of decisions. And and I think another challenge is also that in sourcing you cannot just you cannot just work the same way as you did before. There has to be a rethinking when you really want to adopt sustainability in your company. And there are different reasons for that. And I think Anurag, this company is a great example, because if you work with recycled cotton and you want to do it mechanically without any chemicals, you have limitations as well. But so, for example, in terms of color range, you cannot just send your Pantone coat. You have to choose one of I'm sure you have a lot of different colors, but you have to choose within this range. And then if you have the possibilities, you can maybe blend some of them, and reach another color. But you cannot do it the same way as you did before. And you have to understand how this works and listen to people that explain it to you, and then choose from this range. I think that's really important, and that's really difficult, I think, in some companies still to to tell the head designer that he cannot get the exact green that he wants, but he can get the more sustainable solution within this range.
Yeah. What I can 100% agree on is that the younger generation, the young professionals are following up, or not only following up, they are guiding us into like the sustainable world. For NeoNyt, it's so common that it's such a large group of young professionals joining us and also asking questions in a very direct way and being like, okay, now I've heard you are sustainable, but how? What do you do? Can you tell me more? Transparency, and so on and so on. So it's really key. So I absolutely agree, and I hope that within 10 years, it's not a question anymore how sustainable you are, because everyone in the fashion textile industry is professional enough to answer these questions on a certain level. So yeah, unfortunately, I have to close this discussion already. But one last statement I would like to have from you, and Hannes, I'm referring to one thing you said a little bit, because when it comes to regulations, maybe it needs some stricter global regulations on supply chains in order to ensure more sustainability in sourcing. What do you think about that? Are stricter global regulations something we need to face? Maybe we need to push forward more, even we think about a free market. Maybe Hannes, you can start, then Anurag, and last but not least, again, Gunnar. So Hannes.
Yeah, I think everyone agrees that stricter regulations would be great. In my opinion, it would be good to have them, especially when it comes to ingredients and the origin of products. I think that customers should have the right to know what's really inside of a product, how it was produced, and where. This is still not clear when you look on the label of a garment. And I also think it would help brands to really know all their supply chain. It's really not that easy to follow up all the steps where your product comes from. Even major brands don't know where every piece of their product comes from. And I think one of our hopes for the sustainability in fashion is that in the future we can fully recycle our clothing and make new clothing out of it. I think that's one of the main goals we all have. And to achieve this, we need to know which fabrics we have, which accessories, and which chemicals goes into the products that we produce. So I think if we would have stricter regulations on the ingredients and the origin of a product, that would be a great step.
Thank you. Anurag, what would you like to add here?
Yes, so before I answer your question, just two small things about what just Johannes said. He was just right. It was just not about creating a product which would suit the brand. We've had a lot of education to do with the brand when it comes to convincing in terms of color and all that. He just touched a chord which we had to work on even more than developing the product. And now, and secondly, that goal of being able to recycle the complete garment. So I have been talking about it on various forums, that if you ever want to recycle a garment, first of all, you have to make it in a way that it can be recycled. So even on our website, I put a blog 2 years ago where I wrote that it is the ease of recycling. Organizations like Gunnar and Johannes, you can really do, because you are there in the middle of things. We are sitting far away and just doing things for you. So, we need to come up with an ease of recycling index. Every product, apart from knowing what goes into it, if you can actually label it, how easy it is to recycle a product, whether it is monomaterial, cotton, and that carries a label, that ease of recycling index, this thing is 10 on the index and this thing is 1. So the customer can decide whether he's buying a recyclable product or a non-recyclable product. This is something which the fashion industry just does not want to listen to. They want all the facilities in terms of materials, colors, and flexibilities. And then they want the garment to be recycled. And immense amount of resources are going into designing technologies which will, chemically take out, separate the fibers and all that. yes, that is good. There's no harm in developing those technologies, but the easier and something which you can really pick up very easily is to mark a product on terms of ease of recycling index, and make certain people would definitely take the path of taking products which are easy to recycle. But apart from that, instead of repeating the same thing, two things that I would like to add. One is that we need to dedicate more resources into viable technologies for recycling. So, apart from pushing for legislation, we can push governments to dedicate more and more resources into development of viable technologies. You may have a technology, if it's not viable, it will never work. It may be a very good technology, but it has to be viable also. So we can push even more for investment into that. And the third thing, which I feel, which is also part of the ease of recycling idea that I'm always pushing, is that we are talking of legislation, we are talking of investment into newer technologies. There's another area which really works well is incentivization. So whether it is by way of taxation policies, governments can really incentivize recycled products that maybe the tax is lower, or incentivize products based on ease of recycling. I feel that if we can incentivize, we see that in school also, that on one hand you say that you be strict with the child and put a lot of discipline into place, and there's another where you incentivize. So I feel that if we can push governments to incentivize products made from sustainably, or products made from recycled materials, or products made for ease on the ease of recycling index, that can really create a self-generating momentum, and motivate companies or lure companies further into adopting this at a much faster pace.
Yeah, I very much agree with that. That's how human beings working, actually. 100%.
So that's a suggestion from my side. Yeah.
Great. We will take that. Absolutely. We have contacts to politicians, and they will see this discussion. So 100% this will be spread.
Thank you very much.
Gunnar, what about your thoughts here?
Yeah, I can only agree. I also personally believe that stricter regulation is needed, as I don't think only demand will drive these companies or supply chain actors enough, and we really don't have much time. I think it's a very, very pressing issue, and especially the younger generations are realizing it now. On top of that, obviously, the fashion industry is so resource intensive and already polluting, with so many people employed all over the world. So this, I think, is also a big chance in a way, because this also increases the opportunity then for large scale impact and change. But I don't think that legislation only will be enough, as it's so difficult to implement and control many of these things. So we need better technologies as well. And in a way, I think we need a change in the mindset and then behavior of, in a way, all players. So more of a systems approach, maybe, in a way. And this includes, I think, everyone from raw material producers, manufacturers, sourcing teams of brands, and then also us, in the end, the consumers. And I think we would need more, Johannes, you've already mentioned it, just also more information I would wish to see from governments, from NGOs, so consumers can make more informed decisions, and then therefore drive the demand for more sustainable or preferred materials, for example, stricter certificates and standards, for example. And yeah, we at Forces also believe in such topics, and that this change is already there and coming even more in the future. So we work a lot on these sustainability and CSR topics because we see an industry which is really at the need for a digital and transparent and traceable solution tailored to their specific needs. And yeah, we're happy to be a part in providing that and developing this further with all the players involved, NGOs, production sites, and for example, the NeoNyt as well.
And at the end consumers, because they have to take the decision. Thank you so much, guys. It was a pleasure. We have learned a lot. I mean, this talk actually could go on for like hours, but we have to do a cut here. But we have learned a lot about the complexity of supply chains in the fashion industry, and also about the challenges for buyers to identify actual sustainable and reliable sourcing options. And I think we have seen that fashion supply chains have to get more resilient. That's also a lesson learned by the current crisis situation. It has been obvious before, but now it's like really hitting us quite hard. So the focus has to be on reliable long-term partnerships between buyers, suppliers, and they should be characterized by transparency and trust, as well as localization, and one big word, the co-opetition part here, that the companies are coming together and building something better for good and for the future. Yeah. So thank you again for going on air with us. It was a pleasure. Hopefully next time physical again. I'm happy to invite you to NeoNyt in Frankfurt, actually, the next time. Take care, stay healthy. Good luck and all the best to you. And thanks also to the audience for joining. And yeah, have a great day. Have a great week. Take care. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Timo. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.